In a small village on the edge of a dense forest, there lived a young girl named Marwe and her brother. Their family was not wealthy, but they had a small bean field that provided them with food. One day, their parents instructed them to guard the bean field and chase away the monkeys that often raided their crops. The sun rose high in the sky as Marwe and her brother diligently watched over the field. But as the hours passed, hunger gnawed at their bellies, and their eyes grew heavy with fatigue. Their mother, in her haste, had forgotten to give them food for the day, and now they were growing desperate. Determined to find something to eat, they began to dig up the burrows of field rats that lived in the area. After catching a few, they made a small fire and roasted the rats, easing their hunger just a little. After eating, they grew thirsty and decided to go to a nearby pool to drink. The pool was a short distance away, and they drank deeply from its cool waters. But when they returned to the bean field, their hearts sank. While they were gone, the monkeys had descended upon the field and stripped it bare. Not a single bean was left. Fear gripped Marwe's heart as she stared at the ruined field. What would their parents say? How could they face them after this disaster? Marwe turned to her brother and whispered, "Let's go and jump into the pool. I don't want to face them." Her brother, though just as frightened, suggested they first go home and listen to what their parents were saying. Perhaps there was still a way out. Quietly, they crept back to their home, careful not to be seen. They crouched near the hut and listened through a gap in the banana leaves of the thatched roof. Inside, they heard their parents' voices, filled with anger and frustration. "What are we to do with such good-for-nothing creatures?" their father said, his voice sharp with anger. "Shall we beat them? Or shall we strangle them?" their mother replied, her tone equally harsh. Terrified by their parents' words, Marwe and her brother fled back to the pool. In her despair, Marwe didn't hesitate. She threw herself into the water, vanishing beneath the surface. Her brother, his courage failing him, ran back home and told their parents, "Marwe has gone into the pool." The shock of his words cut through their parents' anger, and they rushed down to the pool, calling out desperately for Marwe. "Marwe, come home. Never mind about the beans, we can plant the patch again." The pool remained silent. Marwe had gone where no living person should venture, into the land of the ghosts. Beneath the surface of the pool, Marwe found herself in a strange and eerie land. The light was dim, and the air was thick with a sense of otherworldliness. As she wandered, unsure of where to go, she came upon a small hut. An old woman lived there, surrounded by a group of children. The old woman was kind and did not force Marwe to work. She told her, "You need not do anything. Let the others do the work." But Marwe, being diligent and kind-hearted, joined the other children in their tasks. Whether it was gathering firewood or cutting grass, Marwe did her part. Yet, she refused to eat any of the food offered to her. She knew that if she ate the food of the dead, she would never be able to leave the land of the ghosts and return to the world of the living. As time passed, Marwe began to feel the weight of her longing to return home. One day, she confided in the other girls, "I should like to go home." The girls encouraged her to speak with the old woman, and so Marwe did. The old woman listened to Marwe's request and, without hesitation, agreed. But before Marwe could leave, the old woman asked, "Shall I hit you with the cold or with the hot?" Marwe, uncertain but trusting, replied, "The cold, please." The old woman led Marwe to a large pot and told her to dip her arms into it. When Marwe pulled her arms out, she found them covered in shining bangles. Then the old woman instructed her to dip her feet, and when she did, her ankles were adorned with fine brass and copper chains. The old woman then gave Marwe a beautiful skin petticoat worked with beads and told her, "Your future husband is called Sawoye. It is he who will carry you home." With that, the old woman led Marwe back to the pool and, with a gentle push, sent her rising to the surface. Back in the world of the living, someone saw Marwe sitting by the pool, dressed in her beautiful ornaments. Word spread quickly, and soon the entire village gathered, including the chief, all amazed by her beauty and the richness of her attire. The chief, filled with admiration, offered to carry her home, but Marwe refused. Others tried, but she declined each one until a man named Sawoye appeared. Sawoye was disfigured by a disease that had left him scarred, but as soon as Marwe saw him, she knew he was the one the old woman had spoken of. "This is my husband," Marwe declared, and Sawoye, surprised but honored, picked her up and carried her home. In time, Sawoye's disfiguring disease faded away, and he became the handsomest man in the village. With the wealth of the old woman's bangles, they bought a fine herd of cattle and built the best house in the village. But their happiness attracted envy. Some of Sawoye's neighbors, bitter with jealousy, plotted to kill him. They succeeded in their cruel plan, but Marwe, determined not to lose her beloved, used the gifts and knowledge she had received in the land of the ghosts to revive him. She hid him in their home, and when the enemies came to claim the spoils, Sawoye emerged, fully armed, and defeated them all. With their enemies vanquished, Marwe and Sawoye were left in peace. They lived happily together, their love and resilience stronger than any force that tried to come between them. And so, Marwe and Sawoye's story became one of legend, a tale of love, courage, and the mysterious power of the land of the ghosts.